the pleasure of interviewing David Huntley. David is the Senior Executive Vice President and Chief Compliance Officer at AT&T. He's responsible for the policies that safeguard the privacy of customer and employee information. He also verifies legal and regulatory compliance in every country and jurisdiction in which AT&T operates. Thank you so much for taking this time today with us, David. Can you share your backstory?
Sure. I grew up in San Antonio, Texas. My parents, I had two loving, doting parents. They sent me off to SMU. I did my 4 years there. I was fortunate to become the first African-American student body president at SMU, so that was kind of an achievement in and of itself. Then I worked for a few years and went to law school, Benjamin Cardozo in New York. After that, a couple of law firms. I was a corporate transactional lawyer, and we moved in-house with SBC in the early 90s. I practiced law for about 10 years, and then somebody said that they thought I could do something other than practice law. So I moved out of the legal department and started working in the business. And in 2005, I became an officer of the company, and I started running those businesses that I worked in, and I had P&L responsibility. I did that until 2010, and they like that line from The Godfather, they sucked me back into the legal department, and I became the general counsel of our Yellow Page business. From there, did that, also was the lead counsel for a couple of other of our operating units. And then finally in 2014, Randall Stevenson, our CEO, asked me to become the Chief Compliance Officer, and that's where I am today.
All right, thank you so much for sharing that story with us. And now, can you share the funniest or most interesting story that happened to you since you took on your leadership role?
Sure. So probably the funniest story happened to be when I was slated to have dinner with the members of the European Union. The ambassador to the U.S. For the U.S. to the EU asked me to come, and he wanted to host a dinner in my honor. And I thought, this is a great opportunity. I get to go and have a nice dinner with some high dignitaries and enjoy a nice meal. So when I arrive at the ambassador's house a little early, he says to me, "So, David, what do you intend to talk about at dinner?" Now, this had not been on my radar to have a prepared remarks or speech. I had flown over 12 hours. I had about an hour of sleep. I was then thrust into meetings, and it had been an all-day back-to-back thing. And so now here I find myself having to speak to about 12 members of the EU at dinner. So I immediately, trying to be quick on my feet, said, "Mr. Ambassador, I want to talk about trust." He said, that's an excellent subject, and it'll be well received. So we go to dinner, we move into the room where the dinner is, I meet these folks, and so I start talking about trust and why that's very important, and it's important to follow the law, and it's important to be the kind of company that any country would want to do business in their country. And so, I talked about the importance of the law, but more so the importance of understanding the spirit of what the law was intended to do. And then I talked about the commitment that our company has for this. Now, while all this was going on, these folks were eating, and all I was doing was talking. So, they would pepper me with questions. I'm talking, and they're eating. They're finished, and the waiter comes over to remove my plate, and I said, no. You don't understand. This looks too good. I have no intentions of allowing you to take my plate into that kitchen. They will just have to sit here and watch me eat now. And of course, there was a big laugh about it.
No, that's
But
no, thank you for that. Thank you. And what do you think makes your company stand out?
all right, so I think, Jamie, there are two things that we are known for. The first is integrity. And that is something that I think most companies would say right off the bat that, you know, that's what you have to have. But if you think back, we've been around for more than 140 years. And it was in 1928 that one of the senior PR individuals, he was kind of the guru of PR for us at the time, he came up and coined a phrase, and he said, a company's true character is expressed by its people. And I think what that does is it reminds us all the time that your character, your integrity, it's on the line each and every day. The second thing I think that we're known for is innovation. From the very, very beginning, that has been our calling card. From the products that we have introduced into the marketplace to the services or to just technology in general. We've been fortunate enough to attract some of the smartest minds on the planet, and we continue to do so. And so those, I think, are the two reasons for our long and continued success.
Thank you for that. And are you working on any new or exciting projects right now?
Yes, the most exciting thing I'm working on is just keeping up with the business. You know, and I say that because I think Tom Friedman captured it in his book, Thank You for Being Late. In it, he quoted a thought leader in the compliance space. His name is Dov Seidman. And Dov indicated that, or I should say Seidman indicated that, I don't know him, so I should refer to his last name. But he indicated that the world is not just changing, but it is being dramatically reshaped. And this reshaping is happening faster than we can reshape ourselves. So in other words, things are happening like you're operating in different dimensions at the same time. Tech, media, and telecommunications all coming together. And so because all of this is happening, it's faster than we can reshape ourselves. It's faster than we can reshape our institutions. But he says it's faster than we can reshape our ethical choices. And so I give you an example of that. Artificial intelligence, machine learning, anything that involves the use of technology, the use of metrics, the use of data. Those things are happening at a pace that is just unimaginable today. But even with that, that means that we have to keep up with that. And so our ethical considerations need to be incorporated into each of these advances in technology. And if not, then we're going to be lost and we're going to miss out. I think about it in this way. You can use technology and data, but you need to do so that you get to the right outcomes.
All right, thank you. And what advice would you give to other leaders to help their employees to thrive?
First and foremost, I'd say you got to focus on your people. It begins and ends with people. I would say that you need to empower your people. We're moving from a day and time when we're telling people what to do at every turn. We need to move into a space where we empower our people, we give them the tools they need, we train them, we compensate them, we incentivize them, but it's all about unleashing, if you will, people and human capability.
All right, thank you. And is there a person that helped you to become successful, and how grateful are you to this person?
I couldn't express in words that would adequately pay homage to my father. He was a man who was born in the Great Depression. Worked and grew up during the Great Depression. He was born a little bit before the Great Depression, but he was a chauffeur. He did not have a college a high school education, much less a college education. And so, as you can imagine, he was denied a lot of things in his lifetime. But the one thing that he had, and the thing that keeps me going, is he had his name, his reputation, his integrity, his word, if you will. And that meant everything to him. You can take a lot of things from him, but you couldn't take that. And that pride in yourself is what fuels me to be the best that I am. He was a tremendous role model that allowed me to think long and hard about some of the choices that I would make in my life and in my career. And those values resonate with me to this very, very day. And so I have a picture of him on my desk, and he lives with me every day. And so I'm reminded, there are times when I might be tempted to maybe get a little upset about something, and I'd look over at him and he'd say, "Now don't lose your temper, son. Now, that just wouldn't serve you or anybody well." And so that's those kinds of things that really are important to me. He encouraged me to be the best that I could be. And as a result, I thought that there wasn't anything I couldn't do and can't do. Mm-hmm. And that stays with me today. So, I don't know that I could ever thank him enough for giving me those values, but more importantly, just making it crystal clear that I should always live in the future and not in the past.
No, definitely. And, just to kind of like talk about that a little bit more, for me, being a Black man and having my career and having my own business, it's really important that my parents were, a part of my life and were able to, instill certain things within me. Both of my parents are from the Caribbean. So, the work ethic that they had, they placed that upon me as well. And the reason why I'm talking about this is that, the person that was in your life is your father, a Black man. And talking to other young Black men and women that are out there that may not have, a parent, like your father that's in their lives, what advice would you give to these young men and women?
That's a great question. I do have to say this about my dad. It was at a time when African Americans were beginning to make strides in sports and acting and on the entertainment scene. And whenever people would ask them, they'd say, who do you attribute your success to? They would always say, it was my mother. My mother this. And he looked at me one day and he said, "Now, boy, if you ever achieve something, and if you don't call me out." Here was a guy who was at all my practices. He was there all the time. But anyway, I just had to say that so that he would look up and say, "Okay, Pop, I made sure that you got called out on that." But what I would say to someone who doesn't have that kind of father figure in their lives, I would say go find that person. And sometimes that may be easier said than done, but sometimes I think we look too far. Some of the people who are the people we need to put a lot of appreciation and value in and towards are people who get up every day and go to work and take care of their families and support their families and are there for their families each and every day. And if you don't have somebody like that in your life, find that person. And by the way, I would say it'd be great if you could find somebody who looks like you, that is to say, is African American. But you find who you can, when you can, and how you can. Because it's important that you get that kind of encouragement and support. And hopefully those people will also expose you to some things that you have not been exposed to. That was one of the best things that, my parents could do, which was beyond where they were at the time in their educational levels. The best thing they invested in was a set of encyclopedias. I'm of that age where, it was also kind of a status symbol to have a set of encyclopedia in your home. But my parents did something, they went beyond that. They made sure that I used the encyclopedia. And so for me, those books were my windows to the world and to history and to places and to things. And so today, if you look at your cell phone, that can be your window to the world. And I just think that, it's a combination of people who can help you use those tools to achieve whatever it is you want to achieve.
All right. Thank you so much for that. And how have you used your success to bring goodness to the world?
A couple of ways. I mean, at this point in my life, I'm on boards. So before, early on in my career, it was what I did. It's coaching. It's doing things, volunteering at church. It's doing all those things. But sometimes your schedule doesn't permit. So today, I'm on a lot of boards that I think are meaningful to me. One such board is a new initiative here in Dallas, Texas. It's called At Last, as an example, and it is designed to be a dormitory, if you will, for African Americans who are in challenged environments on a daily basis. And so you go to school, kids go to school. It starts in grade school, and they go to school, but instead of going back to a bad environment, you go to basically a safe haven, a place where you have a nurturing environment where you can study, you have resources to help you with your homework, and it's just a great setting for learning. And then on the weekends, you can go home, you can interact with your parents, but you at least have some time to be able to absorb, what you're intended to absorb and get out of an educational process. So I'm really excited about being on this particular board. But there are other boards that I'm on. And then the other thing I do that I really enjoy is mentoring people, mentoring and sponsoring people, because I tell people all the time, it's good to have a mentor, but it's just as good, if not even more so, to have a sponsor, somebody who can help you get to that next level or help you actually visualize and materialize your dream.
All right. Thank you so much for that. I appreciate it. And now, can you share the top 5 lessons that you have learned from being a Black man in tech?
The first one I would say is be true to yourself. All too often we move into spaces and to companies and to roles and positions, and we try to be just like somebody else. And it is okay to have the knowledge, the experience, the skill, but be true to yourself. I've heard it expressed as the imposter syndrome. People talk about that, which is, it's a syndrome that says you don't really belong, and so you spend your time trying to fit in. And while I think that you should always try to be a part of whatever group and activity or organization that you're part of, just be true to yourself. Because remember, one of the reasons that you're there is for that different point of view. And if you're going to be just like everybody else in the room, then what's the point of being a Black man in that space? It isn't anything that I'm ashamed of. It is not anything I need to run from. It is something that I am proud of, because when you think back on the legacy that we bring to the table, it is a rich legacy that any and everybody should really appreciate and take advantage of. So that's one. Be true to yourself. The second thing I would say is you need to look and ask for criticism. And what I mean by that is, we live in a world where people are not usually confrontational. And they are certainly not going to be confrontational when you're dealing with somebody of color, more specifically somebody Black. So here's what I would say. You're going to be new to the group, you're going to be introduced into the equation, and you're not going to get the kind of feedback that you need because people are going to sometimes walk on eggshells and they're going to say, well, you know, I don't want to say something about David, or I don't want to criticize his work because I don't want anybody to think that I'm a this or that. I've always been proactive about going to people and asking and telling people, listen, I need the feedback. I need to know what I'm either doing right or what I'm doing wrong so that I can improve. That's, to me, is absolutely critical. Let's see, what else? I would say you got to be prepared. I think back on my father. Here was a guy who, he was self-taught, and he had to know his employer. He worked for a wealthy oil person, and so he'd say, Walt, we're going to go to Canada, and you need to meet me there. I'm going to take the plane, and you need to meet me there at a certain time. He had to think about what the maps were. He had to think about where he could stay, because, you know, at that time, Black people couldn't stay just anywhere. He had to be prepared to do what he did. Now, that's moving from San Antonio to Canada, but I think it's a good example in any and everything that we do. You have to be prepared. You go to a meeting, don't just show up at a meeting and have your pad there ready to take notes. I would say go to the meeting, be prepared to do something and to contribute. I would say finding a sponsor. I talked a little bit about that. It's important to have sponsors and mentors. Don't be afraid to ask for some help. Sometimes our pride gets in front of us, and we don't ask somebody for help. We don't ask questions. We think that we have to figure it out and be an island unto ourselves. And the one thing I did is right up front, if somebody said something that didn't make any sense to me, I would raise my hand and say, I'm sorry, well, what did you say and what do you mean? Saves a lot of time. I'd say those would be the things.
All right, thank you. And what would be your favorite life lesson quote?
I would say, for me, in the role that I'm in now, of course, I would say you have to have unshakable conviction to just do the right thing. And what I mean by that is it's always easy to go along, to get along. But when you know something is not right, when you know something is not true, you have to be the person to stand up in the room and say, no, we can't do that. And so for me right now, that is definitely something that I think we need in this country, not just in the business world, but just in every aspect of our lives, having this unshakable conviction that you have to stand up and for what is right. The second thing I would say is that you need to be you need to have courage. You need to be bold in whatever it is you do. If you are timid, those folks tend to get left behind. Those folks tend not to be heard. Now, I'm not saying you have to be so loud that then people don't want you on the team, but you have to be smart about it, and you need to be able to, you know, speak up and be heard, make a difference, make an impression. I think those are the things that I would say.
All right, thank you. And lastly, who would you love to have a private breakfast or lunch with, and why?
Barack Obama. If it's somebody today, I would say it would have to be Barack Obama. And I would say Barack Obama because I think about how he acquitted himself as the President of the United States for 8 years, and how he met certain challenges and how he dealt with those challenges and stayed his course, was true to himself in the face of incredible criticism at times. I would really love to hear about those experiences. And I have to tell you, I know you only said one. If that person were dead, it would have to be Thurgood Marshall.
All right.
I continue as a lawyer to be amazed at how he was able to go all over this country, essentially, especially, I would say, in the Deep South, and go into courts of law, to hostile environments, the law not on his side, the the law enforcement not on his side, the people not on his side, and to have the winning record. I don't think we today can truly appreciate what he had to do to achieve some of those things. And then to ultimately get to the point where he was, not only did he argue successfully before the Supreme Court, but then to be on the Supreme Court, I just have to spend some time to understand what this brother was all about and how he was able to do all that he did.
All right, thank you. And I agree with you. I would love to meet Barack Obama myself. So I I definitely agree with you on that one. But definitely thank you so much, David. Do you have any last words for us?
Yeah, I would say, this piece, this segment is about blacks in tech. And I would say that of all the fields of endeavor, this is the one that we should seize on the most. And the reason I would say that is because the barriers to entry, when you think about it, are really limiting only according to you, the individual. And the reason I say that is because, it takes a creative idea. It takes having, you could do something from either an equipment standpoint, software, an app. To do and enter this space, if your creativity, your ability to innovate, that's your ticket in. And unlike, my profession, the legal profession, where you've got to go to law school, you've got to pass the bar, you can do this in your backyard. You can do this at home. You can innovate in those spaces. So I think that this is the moment that we should seize. I know that, if you look at Silicon Valley, we are not there in huge numbers. So that means, to me, there's opportunity. I think the tech world is the place it's the great leveler. You just need to be creative and have the idea, and they will embrace you. They don't care what you look like. They just want to know if they can make money off of what you have to offer. And then you can say, you know what, if they don't want what I have to offer, let me go over here and create it myself. There's so many individuals who are using their imagination, creating things outside of any formalized process. And that, to me, says all I need to do is be motivated to do something in the tech area. So this is our time, this is our opportunity, and this is a great space to be in.
Thank you so much. Yes, I definitely agree. And this is the reason why I wanted to set up this series, is that I want, gentlemen like yourself, black men who are in tech, who are in, executive positions in high-level companies, and for just to show that it can be done. You can get into the space, you can create something, you can build something, you can be a part of an organization and be able to make changes. So, I just want to thank you so much for being a part of this series. Thank you.
Well, thank you for having me. This is an exciting time.
Thank you so much. Thank you.